What is it that really matters? For me, first and foremost, it's being surrounded by the people I love, my family, my friends. It's sharing the simple pleasures of life with them and having unforgettable adventures. It's feeling small and humbled within nature's incredible beauty. What really matters is being able to travel again, thinking outside the box and meeting real people. It's taking time to savor the present moment. It's feeling the magic of centuries past and passing it on to my children, filling up on inspiration for tomorrow. What really matters to you?
Hello, bonjour, welcome everyone. Hello. Welcome back to a new season of Explore France Live. This is so good to be back. How is everyone? So this year we have planned to take you behind the scenes of France's grand reopening. Since June 9th, 2020. 21, France has reopened its border to travelers around the world, and many of us have visited. But until we all get back to our favorite places in France, we want to bring you France's most iconic places and its less traveled path here on Explore France Live. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Tiana, your host. And today we have the pleasure of sharing a wonderful documentary brought to you by France Channel TV. And In Love in Paris is a documentary directed by Georges Tillard, where he takes us throughout Paris' most iconic monuments and show us how the city tells both the great stories of exciting adventures and discreet encounters. So, bienvenue à tous. And before we get started, I'd like to check in with everyone, see how are you doing, how have you been, is it the first time tuning in, or have you been waiting for the live to resume? Let's see. Bonjour Sarah, bonjour Nancy from Kentucky, how are you? Is it your first time joining us? Hello, Bob. Thank you for joining us. Bonjour, Bonnie from California. Oh, Marianne, Ireland. How are things going there? Bonjour, Rui. Oh, Michigan, Detroit. That's amazing. Bonjour, Georges. Thank you so much, Georges, for joining us. Bonjour, Dr. Ruth. How are you? Thank you for being back with us from Florida. It's wonderful to see so many of you back here. Bonjour, Charlie, Venice, Florida. Oh my goodness, I wish I was in a nice and warm weather, in the nice and warm weather of Florida right now. In New York, it's quite chilly. So yeah. Oh, hi, Amy. First time. So good. I hope you'll tune in for our future lives. We have prepared such a great year of live. So we're planning on February 23rd to take you to Paris Sainte-Chapelle. So I hope you tune in and follow us, sign up for our notifications and our newsletters where you are going to to post all the information. Oh, thank you, Cinnamon. It's so good to see you. Yes, I like changing style sometimes. So yes, without further ado, I want to talk to you a little bit about this wonderful streaming service that has partnered with us to bring this documentary. So the French channel TV was launched in September 2021. So it's available online on your computer, laptop, cell phone, and is the #1 streaming service dedicated to French. Here is a little demonstration about the platform. So as you can see, the platform actually features best movies, TV shows, and it allows for everyone to embrace French creation, entertainment, travel, culture. This is so exciting. They have over 1,200 movies and shows online. So everything you want to discover France, embrace the French culture, enjoy French movies. They have really such a large connection. They even have live news from France with France.fr. So without further ado, and I want to announce before we start that this is a service that's available for $7.99 and with a 7-day free trial. They also are offering us a 10% discount today with the code France10. So but without further ado, I want us to get started on our watch party today. So if you have any question on the streaming service or this documentary, let's keep chatting in the comments. Have you guys planned any trips to France in the coming weeks, coming months? Anything or anything for Valentine's Day? Please share in the comments. I'm just getting started sharing our hi Victoria, you're a poet and a romantic. Yes, I am too. I was so excited about preparing this live. I really love to highlight Paris as a city for romance. Oh, hi Denise. Yes, you want to go next month? Fantastic. Let us know where you're going and if you need any tips. By the way, like right now, there is a wonderful exhibit in Paris that spans through 6 museums. It's the Yves Saint Laurent. Exhibit, and it runs from through May 15th, so it's in the Louvre, in so many museums. So any tips you'd like for your next trip? So here that was the platform, and this is where we're going to get started on watching this wonderful documentary, Love in Paris. So this is it, easy. You sign up. This is really the Netflix for everything France. So this is the landing platform of French channel. So as you see, they have here their main content, Discover France. So this is where you find culture, travel, lifestyle, entertainment, main movies. So you see here they feature movies with Oscar and César winners here. So there's also opportunities to learn French. They both subtitle the movies. All the movies are in French, but they can be both subtitled in French and English. So now let us get started with our documentary. It's easy as this.
The city of people in love.
The city of Bohemian life. The perfect setting for romance. Here, we're in the theater of life. From all over the world, people come to Paris to pledge their eternal love on the banks of the Seine, on the bridges, against all the backdrops of the city of light. Through its monuments, Paris recounts both history with a capital H and the lighter story of romance and secret trysts. Artists from all over the world got one thing right. There is no city more sung about than Paris. Ella Fitzgerald, Yves Montand, and Edith Piaf yesterday, Lana Del Rey and many others today sing about love and Paris. The romance of Paris, inspiring lovers with a few dreams and skies of blue. Obviously, at first sight, a great lady reigns and dominates the city's rooftops. This huge iron tower was built in 1889 for the Universal Exhibition of Paris that commemorated the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. It was originally planned to be dismantled 20 years after its construction. Today, it is still the most frequently visited paying monument in the world. Over the years, the Eiffel Tower has become the symbol of France, but also an icon for glamour and style among fashion designers. 324 meters tall, it is the place to view the city from. It's also the choice spot to propose marriage or to visit on a honeymoon.
This is our wedding trip.
Honeymoon.
Yes, honeymoon.
Yes.
It's very nice.
And this was our best choice.
Yes, yes. We like art.
Yes.
Let's say architecture, romantic, everything what is with beauty. Everything what is with beauty is here. I think so.
Just wanted, actually we are working in Norway, so we just thought of like seeing Europe, and Paris is the most beautiful city, so that's why I wanted to see. It's like it's mix of all like these iconic things, Eiffel Tower, then Louvre Museum, and all the old monuments, and it's like city of romance. It's very nice.
Yeah.
It's our honeymoon.
It's our honeymoon, so it's the most romantic place where we should be coming. So that's why we are here.
It's our 10-year wedding anniversary today.
It's coming from the old time, like king time. It's the French language was quite popular, and all Russian aristocrats, they speak French, and France is something romantic for us.
They come here to celebrate. Just by being in Paris, for a start, they love to enjoy a glass of champagne at the top of the Eiffel Tower. Being there, making a proposal of marriage at the top of the tower, that's something really special. It's original, unique. But sometimes, there's a proposal that doesn't work. There have been girls that have said no.
I love Paris. From the north and west sides of the Eiffel Tower, you can see on the right bank the largest square in Paris, the Place de la Concorde, with its obelisk from Luxor and its two monumental fountains, one honoring river commerce, the other maritime navigation. Place de la Concorde on a Sunday is the ideal starting point for a lover's stroll around Paris, and in a car, but not just any old car, in a 2CV, perhaps the most popular French car in the 1950s. Convertible with good suspension, it's the perfect vehicle to discover the city together.
All right, we're off on a little tour of Paris in a 2CV.
Bora and Loic have an appointment with Eric, who's brought along Amélie, his favorite 2CV.
We're in luck because today is Sunday and the traffic's moving, and as it's a long weekend, most Parisians have gone away.
Have you ever ridden in a 2CV? Never.
Never.
This is a 1984 model. They started building them in 1948 and finished in 1989, if I'm not mistaken. The last ones were made in Portugal.
It's great because as there's no roof, you can really enjoy the view.
You know a bit about the history of Paris? Remember that at the end of the 19th century, Baron Haussmann destroyed all the medieval buildings in Paris. They were made of wood and straw. Why? Because they were a fire risk. The town was full of dirty little alleys, very unsafe at night. But above all, strategically, it was impossible to move cannons around. They needed wide roads, so he demolished everything and built the type of buildings that are known as Haussmannian buildings, typically late 19th century. The Church of the Trinity, built during the great Haussmannian works. Interesting because it's a mixture of Gothic and Renaissance. After that we come to Pigalle. Do you know who Pigalle was? Jean-Baptiste Pigalle, an 18th century French sculptor. You can see his works in the Louvre. He was so well known that his name was given to the area where he lived. Pigalle's full of sex shops. It's part of the folklore. The Moulin Rouge. I should tell you that Can-Can was originally banned because the girls dancing wore no underwear under their dresses. But at the Moulin Rouge, they did it anyway. That's why everyone goes to see the girls dancing at the Moulin Rouge. The Moulin Rouge is perhaps the place where more champagne is drunk than anywhere else. 900 bottles every evening. This is the Rue Le Pic. Here we're in Montmartre. You know, the people who live in Montmartre never say that they're Parisians. They say they're Montmartrois.
I don't know French history very well. I studied art and culture. And you?
Same with me. I studied the history of France, but not of Paris.
When you speak of Paris, there are a few characters that always turn up. Louis XIV, Napoleon, Napoleon III, Henry IV. Now we'll climb up to the top. The Sacré-Cœur style is somewhat Romanesque Byzantine. It looks a bit like Saint Sophia in Istanbul. This is the summit of Paris.
Montmartre, at 130 meters, is the highest point in Paris. Not everyone has the opportunity, like Bora and Loic, to come here in a 2CV. Most visitors climb the 222 steps up to the Sacré-Cœur. Construction of this basilica began in 1875 after a tragic event. It was in this spot in 1871 that Parisians revolted against the political regime of the time. They created an autonomous government for workers in Paris, but this was cut short and ended in bloodshed. 4 years after this interlude, called the Commune of Paris, the French financed the Basilica of Sacré-Cœur through donations to symbolize the return to moral order after the Parisian insurrection. Today, the troubles of the Commune are distant memories. A few meters away from the Sacré-Cœur is the Place du Théâtre, a vestige of the former village of Montmartre. Here, at the beginning of the 20th century, you might have run into Utrillo or Picasso. These painters made the square famous, and since then, sketchers, portraitists, and cartoonists meet there and put their talents to the service of passing tourists. Its history has given the inhabitants of this neighborhood a special identity, somewhat apart from Paris. So, for example, at the neighbor's party, the barrel organ appears, and revolutionary songs are sung just like in the good old days.
Elle est discrète, elle est légère, à son nom c'est de la mousse.
Montmartre, the neighborhood of artists and bohemian life. That's the theme taken up by Elise Leclerc and Kathleen Aignan for their literary tour. Their idea is simple. They've chosen texts about the area, and they take us to where the events took place. The tour begins at the Place des Abbesses in front of the I Love You wall.
If you look carefully, you'll find the phrase Je t'aime, I love you in 311 different handwritings. It's a recent work by two artists that dates back to the year 2000. It's a monument that many people take photos of these days.
Any other volunteer?
People generally like to find their own language and have their photo taken beside it. The first text that will begin this walk is a text by Roland d'Orgelès entitled The Down and Out Marquis, and introduces you into the atmosphere of Montmartre at the beginning of the 20th century.
At that time, just before the Great War, it was the most delightful village. It had everything. It had the old church, the parish cemetery, the farm gateways, the cafes with the arbors, the old wells with the worn-down walls. There were even 3 mills and a thatched cottage where King Henri, so it is said, used to keep his mistresses. Each little house had its bit of garden. The kids coming out of school scrumped cherries, and on Sundays, crowds of Parisians came up to breathe the fresh air.
Ici, la maison Collignon.
This is the house called Collignon that cinema lovers will recognize. It's been famous for about 15 years since the worldwide success of the film Amélie.
Le fabuleux destin d'Amélie Poulain.
Here we are at the Bateau Lavoir, or laundry boat, a symbolic place in Montmartre. It was first of all an artist's studio because there were lots of painters here. The most famous of them, of course, was Pablo Picasso, who painted here the picture that set down the basis of Cubism, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, the young ladies of Avignon.
At the corner of the Rue Saint-Valentin stood a little house with the windows of a cheap liquor shop from which drifted snatches of songs. It was the Lapin Agile Café. Here you'd find poets, budding journalists, humorists who earned a few cents per quarter written page, a few lawyers' sons who were beginning their law studies, and to make up the numbers, a whole slew of daubers who were in less of a hurry to become artists than to look like them.
The Lapin Agile is the last stop in the literary tour. The cabaret's audience has changed. People like Picasso, Bruon, Braque, Modigliani, or Apollinaire are no longer here warming up over a cherry brandy. Nonetheless, there's still a good atmosphere, and you can join in a few of the famous old French songs.
Every evening, we light up the lamp and start singing French songs, going from the 15th century right up to the present day, and author-composers come in and sing their own songs. We get everyone to sing along. There's a really special atmosphere. The people who come here are surprised, and young, because it may be the first time they've heard voices or instruments that aren't amplified, because there are no microphones, no lasers, nothing. You have to have a bit of a voice at least, and of course, you can't cheat. The show is genuine.
Authentique. La nuit, quand je rêve si de lui, de mon âme. Oh, ce n'est pas qu'il est beau, qu'il est riche, ni costaud, mais je l'aime. C'est idiot, il me fout des coups. Il me prend mes sous. Je suis à bout. Que voulez-vous? Je
We're coming to the Louvre Pyramid, one of Mr. Mitterrand's ideas, who among his great works did the National Library, the Bastille Opera House, and the Louvre Pyramid. The architect was an American of Chinese origin, Pei. The idea behind this glass pyramid is that the light should penetrate the building just as culture should penetrate your mind. That's the idea, this contrast between modern and ancient, which people found quite shocking.
Which is part of history today.
Yes, which is part of history today. The Pont des Arts, the Bridge of the Arts, on your right, for lovers. The booksellers, very Parisian. And the Pont Neuf, or New Bridge, which is strange because it's the oldest, late 16th century. When they built it, it was the new bridge. Now look at that. That's the Saint-Sulpice, where Victor Hugo was married. They spent more than a century building it, and it was never really finished. I quite like it. It's sort of Latin. You wouldn't think you were in Paris. I can honk. You see, in a 2CV, there's always something happening. Under the flags, there's the Procop, the oldest cafe in Paris, where Voltaire and Rousseau went. We'll go past the National Assembly and then back to Concorde. I hope you've had a good time.
Yeah, it was great.
It was like traveling through history. And in a 2CV, what's more.
Yes, the French make a fuss about their history. Enjoy the rest of your trip. Bye. Enjoy Paris.
Bora and Loïc continue their tour on foot under the sky of Paris. Today, lovers stride down the Grand Boulevard, lined with prestigious brands, but the city also lived through more difficult times. At the end of the 1940s, for example, the Parisians' daily life was one of restrictions. Humanist post-war period. This was a time that Jean-Claude Gontran knew well. In those days, he was very close to Robert Doisneau, the famous photographer. In fact, he dedicated a very handsome book to him, in which we find Robert Doisneau's most famous picture.
We're going to go to the kiss of the Hôtel de Ville. It's a picture that was first done in 1950. Because in Paris, lovers would kiss each other. And this seems strange in the USA. So he was asked to try and concretize this idea, and Raphael asked Robert, who knew the street well, to do it. He tore his hair out because he thought taking photographs of people kissing is really not my thing. Robert was really very reserved. And then, by an amazing bit of luck, just at that time, he saw, as he walked down the street, a couple kissing each other passionately on a cafe terrace. And he thought it was rather sweet. He waited for a bit, then he asked them if they would agree to being photographed, because he thought they were very beautiful. It was published in Life, but just among all the others, and not a full page. Nobody noticed it more than the others, so it just came and went in 1950. And it was only in 1986 that Victor Frances, who was directing the Édition du Désastre at the time, made a poster from the photo, among many other posters. Why? No one knows. In 1986, he produced 400,000 copies in one go. That was a record. 400,000 in 1986, 36 years later. You never know how the life of a photo will go.
Second World War?
It's romantic.
It does resemble love and passion, I think.
The demonstration of love.
Yes, because you think of it as the romantic city.
You want to reproduce the picture? Come on.
No, not on
No. Oh. Poo-poo.
Do you want us to kiss?
Do you know how?
I don't know. We'll see.
Behind the Hotel de Ville, between the Place de la République and the Bastille, is the Marais district. In the 19th century, it escaped Baron Haussmann's transformations and has retained its small streets. Strolling through it, you cannot fail to notice these images pasted on the walls. It's a new kind of street art based on the ephemeral that we owe to Fred Le Chevalier. Fred was a primary school teacher before he threw it all up to live a bohemian life. Nowadays, he draws and exhibits in the street.
So today we're still in recurrent themes. An echo of what I first stuck up in this street. It's a series of characters I already used in an exhibition and a book. They're couples, duos face to face, looking at each other and always with the same caption, "Love is never dirty." It's a series of drawings around an amorous relationship that I began for an action with the association ACT UP, where they were asking for drawings on the theme of homophobia. I don't want to make a moralizing, aggressive, or provocative statement. It's just gentle. This one's typical because the characters are androgynous. They're both feminine, masculine mixed, with the little motifs I always put and a desire for gentleness. Then people can make of them what they will. I think it's always in the same movement. These are characters that go beyond the difficulties. They're going to be in search of flight and lightness. So it's clearly my life, past emotions or not. My culture is punk rock, hardcore punk. I'm also influenced by Alexandre Dumas and Gustave Doré's engravings. So it's a bric-a-brac, but I'm attached to the idea of liberty, doing things yourself. I try to follow a path. For me, there's a link with childhood in this sort of activity, because you do a bit of climbing, you speak to people, you lose track of reality in a way. It's a bit of childish fun in a way. You're on a journey. It's like when you're a kid. You build a cabin in the forest, you go walking, you get interested in something that's quite ordinary. There, that's a good place for him. That works. But it wasn't planned. It's like a game. There's gentleness and violence in Paris. It's a mixture. I think my drawings have a meaning too. I put up gentle things because it's a fast town. Foreigners say it's romantic, it's gentle, it's luminous. Personally, I sometimes find it dirty, aggressive. So I have an ambiguous relationship with Paris, like all Parisians, I think.
I loved you, I love you, I will love you. Paris is conjugated in many tenses. From the trendy present of the Marais to the outmoded imperfect of the Saint-Ouen flea market, it's more than just a complicated metro journey. It's quite simply another world, way up north on the other side of the Périphérique, the Paris Ring Road. There wouldn't be any available walls for Fred's trendy drawings in this maze of shacks, where you can find just about everything. For that matter, they're probably a little too modern for this place. Here, the flavor of the hour seems to be pure kitsch. And the place it's most obvious is Chez Louisette, the last remaining popular tavern in Paris.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chez Louisette. And bon appétit.
Je ne sais pourquoi je le danse à Saint-Jean aux musettes. Quand un gars m'a pris un baiser, j'étais étonnée, j'étais chipée. Comment ne pas perdre la tête, serré par les bras audacieux, car au du mon amour, quand il s'en dit avec plaisir. Moi qui l'aimais tout, je le trouvais le plus beau de Saint-Jean. Il ne m'aime plus, c'est du passé.
Amazing! I am very, very, very happy.
Kind of typical French old style, and I like the music.
First, I didn't think I'd have an occasion like this. It's a nice surprise. Maybe it's also a place that can make love ferment.
Yes, of course, I know Edith Piaf, and I adore her.
Si tu me parles, que tu sois loin de moi, que m'importe que les problèmes, mon amour, pourrais-tu penser?
You're beautiful. You're beautiful.
Magical moment. This lady's au concours. It was a huge and immense pleasure, and she touches heart. And people, ladies like her, do not exist anymore. I'm very happy I had this chance and this privilege.
It's amazing to be here. Paris is Paris, of course, and she's an incredible person.
Charm, all about charm and love and the atmosphere and the French. You're so charming. We love it.
We come here every year, and we come here every year because the atmosphere in this little restaurant with singers is just fantastic. We've known Manuela for years. I like her, but I don't think she's really very much like Piaf.
He was French Minister of Culture, and he came to award the decoration to the restaurant.
I'm Spanish, and I've come to Paris.
You like it?
Yes, it's marvelous. It's marvelous, beautiful.
We try to preserve this unique atmosphere, the atmosphere of the old French ganguette, which is sublime and reminds us of the good old days.
Piaf the Waif is still a popular Paris icon, but there are quite a few other figures who incarnate the cheeky humor of the Parisian. In 1938, in Marcel Carné's film Hôtel du Nord, on a lock gate on the Canal Saint-Martin, Arletty shouts at Louis Jouvet. This line has gone down in history, and it's still often heard here on the quays of the canal in front of the Hôtel du Nord, even though Carné had the lock, the hotel, and a little of the neighborhood reconstructed in a studio. But that doesn't matter to the Parisians and the tourists who come to this now legendary spot.
Arletty's line on the bridge just over there. Atmosphere, atmosphere. Are you calling me atmosphere? That's what remains today of the film Hôtel du Nord. We're in a very pleasant area with the canal nearby, especially when it's a fine day like today. It's a very nice place for a stroll because it's beautiful and attracts a lot of people.
We're from Montreal in Quebec, and we chose the Hôtel du Nord because it's a famous hotel in a famous film that my friend here knows of by heart.
It's part of my cinema culture. I've known of the Hôtel du Nord since I was very young. Those old films that we don't always get a chance to see, they have a meaning for us. In a way, they're part of our own culture.
When we come to Paris, it evokes all of that history with a capital H of this beautiful city. I've been here several times, but this is the first time with my Prince Charming.
Yes, my carriage is just outside.
I've been here several times alone or in a group, but what we want to do this is to experience it as people in love. Experience the Paris of Parisians, in fact. Formerly, the Canal Saint-Martin was a very working-class neighborhood. Since the early 2000s, it has, little by little, become gentrified. Today, the quays of the canal are frequented by the youth of Paris. It's a bourgeois Bohemian neighborhood where people come to rest, chat over a glass of beer, or simply have a change of scenery along the quays. Let's head west. Still on the right bank of the Seine, in the heart of the fashionable quarter, is the Opera House. One of Paris's symbolic places, Opera Garnier is named after its architect. In 1858, Napoleon III decided to build a new opera house for Paris. Prefect Haussmann chose a narrow square in the 9th arrondissement. There was no room for surrounding gardens, so people out strolling simply stopped for a rest on the steps, as they still do today. There is a legend that clings to this building about a ghost that haunts it. And, as is often the case, the legend comes from a love story and from a very real news item. On May 20th, 1896, a counterweight broke loose, and the huge 8-ton chandelier fell right in the middle of a performance of Gounod's Faust. There was one victim, the spectator in seat number 13, according to the legend, which also maintains it was the Phantom of the Opera that caused the chandelier to fall. In love with a singer, one evening when his beloved could not sing, in anger he made the chandelier fall into the audience. Even today, during performances, the Phantom of the Opera leaves the basements and the machine rooms and goes upstairs to his dressing room, the one reserved for him. Visitors always hope to get a glimpse of him, but up till now he's remained hidden amid the gilded decorations of this luxurious Italian-style theater that seats almost 2,000 spectators. So Opera Garnier is one of the monuments that tells the history of Paris, as does Notre Dame. The cathedral was for a long time the highest monument in Paris. Almost all the kings and emperors of France have passed through its doors. Today, more than 20 million people visit it every year, which makes it the most frequently visited free monument in Paris and in all of Europe. Beside Les Halles, the Centre National d'Art et de la Culture Georges Pompidou, more commonly known as Beaubourg, has finally found its place in Paris. Its opening caused controversy because of its modern architecture. It houses one of the 3 largest collections of modern and contemporary art in the world. But the city reveals itself in less well-known places too, like the Rue Montorgueil in the 2nd arrondissement. A typically Parisian street with its shops and cafes. But in France, no street is really enjoyable unless it has a pastry shop. So at number 5, we find something to delight our palates. The oldest patisserie in Paris, a business founded in 1730 by Nicolas Storer, the head pastry chef to Louis XV.
The inside of the shop dates from the 19th century. All the decor was done by a painter who'd won the Grand Prix de Rome and whose name was Paul Baudry. And he, among others, was entrusted with the magnificent entrance hall of the Paris Opera House. He did the decor here, and that's why the mural and ceiling paintings are listed among the historical monuments of Paris, because they were done by a renowned artist.
But you don't come to stores just to look at the beautiful decor. The shop's reputation is based on a royal little cake with an evocative name.
The Well of Love was a cake that was served at the romantic dinners of King Louis XV at Versailles. Because, well, it's common knowledge that Louis XV was greatly attracted to the fairer sex. And when he held one of his intimate dinners, he liked to serve the Well of Love, which at that time was full of meaning for the lady who was invited to dine with the king. The recipes actually existed and were handed down from successor to successor without ever being really written down. There are customers who know that at Stora you can still get the Well of Love with custard inside, as it was made at the beginning. So they come especially for that cake. Other customers don't know it yet, and so we tell them about the cake's origins. It's part of the romantic essential of Paris. There are people who come from the four corners of the world to visit our museum, as it were.
In Paris, romanticism is everywhere, even in places where you expect it least. In the cemeteries, for example. And Thierry Leroy has adopted this oddity and made it his profession. He calls himself a necro-romantic. On demand, he guides tourists through the 40 hectares of the huge cemetery Père Lachaise, going from tomb to tomb, tirelessly recounting love stories.
We're in the famous Père Lachaise cemetery. We can say famous because it's one of the best-known cemeteries in the world, where more than 3 million people come to visit every year. This famous cemetery in the city of love that Paris is, where many famous people lie and where we can speak of love stories, and in particular of the beautiful love story of Héloïse and Abélard. Abélard was a canon of the church, a teacher, and very well known. Héloïse was a beautiful young lady, and her uncle gave Abélard the task of educating his niece. Well, they see each other every day, and of course, the unthinkable happens, and they fall in love. Then, what happened was, a baby was conceived. Of course, Héloïse's uncle was quite displeased by this treachery, because it could be called treachery. And the punishment was very hard, because the uncle sent his henchmen to find Abélard, and they castrated him. Nevertheless, their story continued. They married in secret. What happened didn't prevent their writing many love letters, which were, I must say, torrid, really torrid. Héloïse was very much in love. One reason for Père Lachaise Cemetery being so well known to tourists who visit the capital, the City of Light, is that Jim Morrison is buried here. His international fame brings tourists from the world over to Père Lachaise to visit his tomb. But of course, after Jim, they go on to find out what a romantic place the cemetery is. And they find other famous people. Because here we could do almost an around the world in 80 tombs, if I might say, with a little wink to Jules Verne. When we say that the Père Lachaise Cemetery is a romantic place, it's due to its atmosphere of greenery, the gardens, the luxuriant vegetation, but also to the presence of personalities who were symbolic of that romantic period. Here's the splendid tomb of Frédéric Chopin. It's very moving, at least I think so. The monument has a romantic appearance because Frédéric Chopin expressed two wishes. The first was that Poland should be with him on his everlasting journey. Well, granting this wish was in fact simple. Placed inside his vault was a box containing some earth brought from Poland. And the second wish, he wanted Poland to have a part of him. So his body was buried here, but without the heart. The heart was removed and is now in Warsaw, in a column in the Church of the Holy Cross. I've been walking around here for about 30 years. I discovered it when I arrived in Paris, like anyone else from the provinces. And I decided to make it my profession. But I've only been practicing for 18 years. And in fact, it's become almost my second home. And almost 30 years later, I still enjoy walking around it because I think that Père Lachaise is one of the treasures of the capital. Edith Piaf is world famous. She's still universally remembered today. Her funeral monument, of course, is very sober. She rests with her father, with her last husband, Théophanie Slamboukas, and then on the other side is the only child Edith Piaf ever had, a daughter that she named Marcel, little knowing at the time that the love of her life would also be called Marcel, the famous boxer Marcel Cerdan.
A little further off, Thierry takes us to another tomb that always seems to attract passers-by. It's the tomb of Victor Noir, a journalist who was assassinated by a cousin of Napoleon III. On his tomb, a recumbent effigy sculpted by Jules Dalou has a success that cannot be denied.
There's a story here, a ritual. This part with the sheen, if it has a sheen, is obviously because it's been touched. And it's said that all those young ladies, by touching the recumbent figure, well, let's say he bestows the gift of fertility. What's moving is that from time to time, gifts of homage are placed in the hat, and the finest tribute I've seen is a tiny pair of baby slippers, and on the sole was written, "We called him Victor."
Père Lachaise, no one regrets coming here, that's for sure. But nonetheless, who could imagine a lover's tour of Paris without walking up the Champs-Élysées? It's a little paradise of luxury. Here you dream, or take photographs of yourselves in front of high-class display windows. The Arc de Triomphe welcomes those who've made it to the far western end of the avenue. 50 meters high, it also symbolizes France. The monument is renowned, the perfect backdrop for a photo that will end up on the living room wall. But there's another must-see, Versailles. There's the chateau, of course, but for a more romantic approach, you must visit the French gardens. Another view of the history of Versailles that Alain Baraton, the head gardener, knows better than anyone.
I think there are two Versailles. The king of authority, the French Isle Versailles, where all is straight lines, symmetry, and perspective. In short, the Versailles that doesn't play around, that shows off the wealth and power of a monarch. Then there's the intimate Versailles, the Versailles that allowed the monarch from time to time to distance himself from the constraints of the court. And that's where we are, the Petit Trianon, a place very dear to Louis XV, where he would stroll with his favorite ladies, and heaven knows there were plenty of them. This is where Marie Antoinette sought refuge because she couldn't stand the protocols of the court. So here we are really in what I would call peaceful Versailles. It's a sort of island, the place to go for monarchs in search of intimacy. The building, the Petit Trianon, dates from Louis XV. It was built on Madame de Pompadour's suggestion for Louis XV. It's a delightful little building that I personally find exquisite. In the Temple of Love, and the garden around it was requested by Marie Antoinette, who really wanted an escape One must bear in mind that at the time of the kings, there were always dozens of people in the garden and in the chateau, so it was unbearable. And from time to time, people had a need, just like today, of a romantic setting. Well, this is that romantic setting. A garden with sensual curves, exquisite perfumes, and many flowering shrubs. Quite simply, a garden where it was good to be. The garden that Louis XIV wanted beneath the windows of his chateau was a garden in the French style, which had to obey the king. But Louis XIV, from time to time, was also a king whose heart beat faster. So he built the Grand Trianon, a building for himself where he could meet those close to him. This palace was to become the Palais de Fleurs. Here, they would put flowers that were at that time among the most rare. All these plants that we see today were taken as samples back then from far-off countries and presented to the king. They were genuinely rare specimens of plants, and flowers mean seduction. You're tempted, especially if you happen to be Louis XIV, to pick a few marguerites and offer them to a lady you wish to seduce. And perhaps flowers remind us that the Trianon is not frozen in time, but is truly alive.
Back to town to the quays of the Seine. At the La Râpée quay, you're all dressed up, you've made a date, the evening's off to a good start.
Good evening and welcome aboard. A reservation for Bichon, one night. You're in cabin 9 and you're at table 9 too. All right? We have a lot of guests who come to stay for a day, 1 night, 2 days, 2 nights. It all depends. It's extremely pleasant, a real way of getting away from it all, because you're on a boat.
The idea is absolutely simple. A romantic cruise for a night or two down the River Seine.
It's a Christmas present from Mathieu for the end of our week in Paris.
The week in Paris was a birthday present, and Christmas present is dinner tonight.
Passing under the Pont des Arts is a thrill for the passengers. It may be a habit for Michel and Marie, but they still love it, because they are in love too.
We met on May the 1st, 1968.
We started a family with 2 children and 6 grandchildren. It was love at first sight.
Love at first sight. Declarations of love happen every day here, especially at the foot of the Great Lady.
Oh, it was great. Wonderful. We've been a couple for 3 years now. At the beginning of our relationship, I asked him to propose to me near the Eiffel Tower, on a barge and all, like a princess. I began to think it wouldn't happen, but then, in the end, he proposed to me, just like in a dream.
So there you are. In Paris, you can spend the night on a boat, you can go to the Moulin Rouge, the Folies Bergère, or even join in the fun with the little improvised groups on the riverbanks, as they have a ball to the sound of trombones and trumpets. Or you might prefer waltzing and accordions. But whatever makes you happy, as Ernest Hemingway said, there is never any ending to Paris. Paris was never to be the same again, although it was always Paris, and you changed as it changed. We never went back to the Vollerberg, and neither did the rich. There is never any ending to Paris, and the memory of each person who has lived in it differs from that of any other. We always return to it, no matter who we were, or how it was changed, or with what difficulties or ease it could be reached. Paris was always worth it, and you received return for whatever you brought to it. But this is how Paris was in the early days, when we were very poor and very happy. Ernest Hemingway, A Movable Feast.
Wonderful documentary. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. I mean, now I've watched it multiple times, obviously, but yeah, see, it's never. Oh, thank you so much, Janine. It is really a fantastic program. Thank you, Maria. I'm so happy you enjoyed it. Merci, Ginny. Yes, and I want to thank, the director, and he's amazing, Georges Tillard. He has other documentaries available if you'd like to watch them. Wow, thank you so much, Linda. I'm glad you loved it. Thank you, Jessica. So this is one of the documentary that France channel has featured for this month, this month of love and friendship. And we're so happy we have had the opportunity to share this with you. So there are, as I mentioned earlier, 1,000 more that you can watch that are all focused on France. So again, they graciously are offering us a 10% discount on their subscriptions, and a 7-day trial if you'd like to try it out first. So I highly recommend it. I'm enjoying myself so much watching beautiful French movies, and just going back there every time I feel a little homesick. So I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Margie. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Berta. And thank you. So please, for next time on February 23rd, we are going to La Sainte-Chapelle. They are taking us on an exclusive preview of their virtual guided tour that they have conceptualized for us, and I am really looking forward to share that with you. So make sure you tune in for that episode as well. We'll share the link in the comments. But for me, sharing with you the history of La Sainte-Chapelle and at least a preview of it is really a dream come true. I hope you'll be able to join us, and I will definitely, I saw many questions about the guides for the classic cars, the guides for Montmartre, and the Seine tour. So for the Seine tour, cruise, there is so many of them depending what you're looking for, but there is something that I really like. I got my parents this for, I think it was 2 years ago, for their Valentine's Day. I got them Ducasse-sur-Seine. So it's Alain Ducasse has a cruise where you can have, a Michelin star dinner on the Seine River. So yes, Jessica, there is also le VIP Paris.com. There is also which one? Les Yachts de Paris. Les Vedettes de Paris, and so many of them. I'm gonna share a list of all of them, but yeah, I really like the Alain Ducasse. My parents really enjoyed it, so that's the one I recommend. But I'll definitely share as much as possible. And thank you so much to all of you for joining, and I hope to see you on the next episode, February 23rd. Save the date. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt. Merci Patty, merci Jessica, merci Carole, merci Pat, merci Janine, merci Dr. Ruth. Thank you so much. And thank you again, French Channel, for bringing us in Paris in Love. Thank you again to the team at French Channel for this. Au revoir.